Hello everyone and welcome back to the Unlimited Saga tutorials. This is the Ventus tutorial, which is the second in our series, where we will explore adventuring basics. We will first go over questing basics, such as controls, some basic menu functions, how we interact with enemies, and how do we deal with and avoid traps. Once we enter the adventure screen, our team is represented by a silver token. The D-pad will let you scroll through the many items on the bottom left, whereas the analog stick is used to move. Pressing square allows you to look at the map, as well as see how many turns you've used up in this quest. The circle button opens up the status menu. These functions we will go into more details later. Moving is simple enough. By pressing and holding the analog stick in a certain direction, your character will then move in that general direction. You can also tap the joystick in that general direction. This is very useful to check the threat levels of the areas you are moving to. Blue is usually safe, while a red or a yellow cursor will indicate that there is a monster. The other function that uses analog sticks is resting. As you can see, Tiffin at the moment is pretty low on HP, so what we do is you press down on the analog stick, also known as the L3 or the R3 buttons, and you will be prompted with an option to rest in place. Doing so will use up a turn, but all the characters in your party will increase their HP slightly. The amount of HP a particular character recovers is actually dependent on his or her HP recovery stat. Therefore, while some characters take only a few turns to recover their HP, others take much longer. The main menu is the list of items to your bottom left, which is used to interact with the game in various ways. Starting with the skill option, which is used to perform various actions and examine various objects, items, or treasure chests. Press it and you can use the left and right directional buttons to switch between targets. The L1 and R1 button will cycle between the characters who will be performing that particular action, while the up and down buttons, as well as the L2 or R2 buttons, switch what skills you wish to use. Pressing the square button here will toggle between the map and the party targets, so you can perform skills on your characters, such as using restoration spells. In short, the skill command will be your main interface throughout your quests. It takes a bit of getting used to at first, but once you get the hang of it, it's actually quite simple. Next is the item menu, which serves two very important purposes. First of which is item sorting. Pressing circle will bring up the sorting menu, or pressing circle again will bring up those auto sort options, which is particularly useful since you cannot sort items outside of quests. It will also make it a lot simpler to look for items during blacksmithing. The other purpose of the item menu is actually quick fixing, which allows you to repair items if you have that specific skill. The status menu we've already seen earlier in the video, so we're going to skip that. And lastly is the quit option, which allows you to quick save and then exit the game. Once back at the title menu, you will be greeted with an extra continue option. Like many RPGs, the quick save will be deleted once you reload it. When dealing with objects in quests, you will often come up against something called the reel. This is Unlimited Saga's answer to dealing with random aspects within the game. In the case of the adventure reels, the wheel will consist of three panels. The green circle represents a successful roll, the X represents a failed roll, while a bomb represents a critically failed roll. Each of these have different results depending on the action you do. The number of these panels will vary according to the level of the skill being used for this particular action, among other variables. As per any RPG, monsters are an essential part of the game. You can usually tell whether if an adjacent area has a monster in it by looking at the threat levels. Yellow would indicate monsters, while red indicates a strong monster. However, monsters will move towards you, so they can appear even on a blue area. To be sure, you can check for monsters using the eavesdrop skill or detection magic. When meeting a monster, it may or may not attack you. There are several types of monsters, each with varying degrees of aggressiveness. Undeads and Aquans will usually attack you on sight, while slimes will rarely attack at all. If it does not attack, you can do one of three things. First, you can perform an action on it to attack it. Second, you can simply ignore it and move on. Third, you can use the diplomacy skill to chase it away without fighting it, as long as you are successful at the reel. Fail and it might attack, but if you critically fail, it will attack you immediately. As for traps, unlike monsters, the game will not prompt you if you land on a panel with a trap. However, it will always show up when you use the skill command. There is a chance that the trap will trigger, and the game will ask you to spin your way out of it. Like a monster, if it does not immediately trigger, you may choose to ignore it, but in some cases, it might be better to defuse it using the defuse skill. Again, spinning the reel. If you have a high level of defuse skill, the probability of dodging the trap is much better, so this is a good idea. Surprisingly, one of the biggest problems new players have is the opening of treasure chests. Unlike most RPGs, Unlimited Saga has a complex system of locks and traps that requires you to know a special set of skills to open treasure. The first step, of course, is finding the treasure. Aside from fixed treasure chests, nearly all quests, especially at empty dead ends, contains hidden treasure. To get these treasures to appear, you need either a guide skill or a familiar to explore the area. There are a total of 3 area types: roads, caves, and buildings, each with a different guide skill. Simply use the skill on the area, and if there are any treasure chests, it will appear. When you have discovered the treasure, there are a total of 5 steps to opening it, and a different skill is needed for each of them. These skills are Sharp Eye, Diffuse, Fortune Teller, Locksmith, and Magic. First up is Sharp Eye. What this skill does is that it investigates the treasure chest for locks and traps. This is not a necessary skill, but it is highly recommended. Knowing what traps a treasure has will give us a better idea as to what to do with it. After detecting the traps, the next logical step is of course to defuse it. If you remember, the skill is also used to defuse the traps on the road. Again, the reels come into play here and the same results apply. There are several types of traps, identified by various icons. The needle trap is an annoying little trap with insignificant damage that triggers repeatedly. The poison trap spills you with a cloud of poison, which does medium damage and occasionally gives you the poison status. The explosive trap is definitely the most annoying, since not only does it deal heavy damage to your entire party, but the item is destroyed as well. Last but not least is the mimic. Triggering this will immediately put you into a fight with a treasure slime, and it will often give you goodies if you win. In fact, in many cases, it is a good idea to trigger the mimic trap. Among the items it drops are magic tablets, which are quite rare in game. After that is the Fortune Teller skill. Treat this as the gamble skill you would know from similar forms of tabletop RPGs. Using this skill will change the contents of the items inside. A successful roll will reveal the item inside the chest as well as increase the level of the chest, meaning you will get better items, while the X decreases the level of the chest, and nothing is revealed. Consequently, the bomb will decrease the level of the chest all the way to 1, triggering all the traps and then open the treasure chest for you. Oh, the horror. Also be warned that if the treasure chest level is high, it will be harder to defuse or unlock, so be careful. Botched unlocking attempts can take up a lot of turns. The final step is unlocking the chest. There are 2 types of locks, a normal lock and a magic lock. The normal lock is presented as a white key, whereas the magic lock is a purple key. Normal locks are simple enough. You use the locksmith skills. If you succeed at the reel, you will open it. If you critically fail, any traps on it will trigger, so it is important to defuse the chest first. Magic locks are slightly harder, since you need to be able to cast certain spells, such as fire arrows or boulder, to unlock them. If all else fails, you can actually force the treasure open. Do this only as a last resort, such as early in game where you don't have a character with locksmith. To do so, some perform a successful melee at the treasure chest, but be warned, there's a good chance that the item inside would shatter. In summary, here's what you need to do to treasure. Look for it using a guide skill or a familiar. Check it for traps using Sharp Eye. Defuse the traps, or not, depending on the mimic trap. Use a Fortune Teller to improve the item inside, then unlock it. Whew, it's been a long tutorial. Come and join me next time when it's Kurt's tutorial and we deal with battle.